Muslims often claim that life is a test of whether we submit or knowingly reject Islam. But it's not. If that was the case, then the precondition must be that everyone knows beyond doubt that Islam is true. Only then can humans be tested as to whether they submit or knowingly refuse. The truth of Islam should not be a question anyone needs to ask. It must already be known for the test to proceed, something God could easily and instantly do. But he hasn't. The fact that Islam is open to question, polemics and apologetics means that it is not a test of whether humans submit or knowingly and arrogantly reject it. Instead, it is a test of whether one is able to navigate his or her way through competing and inconclusive religious claims. A test of contestable theological arguments that depend on philosophical, contextual and cultural perspectives. A test God has chosen to make debatable and dependent on factors beyond our control, with no relation to the virtue or lack of virtue of a person's character. Our different perspectives deeply influence how we understand a particular line of reasoning. Things that seem rational to one person can seem irrational to another. Reason and logic is a human construct that is not infallible or immune from context or viewpoint. This test has absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with sorting people into good and bad, those who deserve heaven and those who deserve hell. In fact, not only has Allah chosen not to make every single human being know for certain Islam is true beyond doubt, He has chosen to allow plenty of good and valid reasons why people might disbelieve, without it having anything to do with the quality of their character. For example, He told us Adam and Eve were the first human beings on earth. He taught Adam the names of all things, made him a prophet. His sons, Cain and Abel, offered a sacrifice and fought each other because God didn't accept one of them. But instead of providing scientific evidence to prove that humans are a perfectly formed creation originating from two individuals, Allah has made it appear as if humans are the result of a long cumulative process that slowly evolved from apes and only gradually developed the characteristics we recognize as fully human. Instead of providing evidence that some human beings could live to 1,000 years old, He made this seem implausible, resulting in many reasonable people disbelieving through no fault or sin of their own. Instead of providing solid scientific evidence that hitting one's wife can sometimes solve marriage problems, He allowed the evidence to contradict this. Instead of making it perfectly reasonable to believe that a tribe of humans could be imprisoned for over 2 millennia behind a wall of iron, undetected by modern technology, He made this scenario seem completely unbelievable to a great many good and decent human beings. Instead of providing archaeological evidence for the great kingdom of Solomon and his palaces built by magical jinn, He made the evidence look as if Solomon may not even have existed. Instead of leaving evidence that a whale or big fish could swallow a human and transport him to an island where he could carry on spreading the message of Islam, He made this seem highly improbable. Instead of intervening to save countless human beings suffering oppression, abuse, or gas chambers, He intervened by sending a squadron of stone-throwing birds to protect a brick building that housed idols. Instead of describing just once how boiling water makes it safe to drink, saving millions of lives, He described several times how boiling water can be used for torturing people. Instead of forbidding child marriage, He forbade working on the Sabbath, on pain of being turned into monkeys and pigs. Instead of banning slavery and concubines, He banned bacon and ham. Instead of protecting all the messages and books of His many prophets, He allowed all but one to be hopelessly lost or corrupted, confusing and misleading millions of kind, loving, and moral people. Perhaps the greatest contradiction is that He told us He is the most merciful of those who show mercy, while saying He will eternally torture those who disbelieve, knowing full well He has kept Himself hidden and allowed a plethora of confusing and conflicting evidence that would lead blameless and virtuous individuals to disbelieve. Then, instead of seeking to enlighten, cure, or rehabilitate these unbelievers, or even allowing them to die, he will keep them alive just for the purpose of torture without end, for the crime of finding Islam unconvincing. This is not a test of whether we submit to God or not. This is a test of whether fortune has given us a particular cultural upbringing, influences or perspectives that make it possible to selectively favour one debatable religious claim over another, while blocking out aspects that many other good and decent human beings find irrational, without it having anything to do with them being bad or evil people. Would a wise and merciful God truly hold his fallible creatures accountable for disbelief when he has chosen to leave so much open to reasonable doubt and scepticism? Would he punish someone for being honest to their understanding? Is not the virtue and character of a human being of more worth than the inconclusive metaphysical beliefs that fortune has favoured them with?